As you can imagine, I'm asked all the time what an ideal budget is for a gaming PC, and in 2024, well, that depends. See, if you're coming into this without a budget in mind, I like to push folks somewhere around the $800 to $1,200 range. You can get a lot of versatility from a budget like that. You can pick and choose from several different components. You're not so locked down from a financial perspective, and at the same time, you're not just senselessly throwing money at things that won't necessarily increase your experience in game. Case in point, your case. You could choose a very expensive case that ultimately won't give you any better performance than a cheaper airflow option like this 205 Mesh C. So in this video, we'll be building a $1,200 gaming PC that I think is quite balanced. It won't use the latest and greatest platform, and that's kind of the point. I'm trying to show you that you don't have to spend, I don't know, $400 or $500 on a new gaming CPU. You can choose something from the last gen that's actually quite affordable, like our 5600X here, for about 150 USD brand new. That means you get to pair it with an older, usually cheaper motherboard as well. And these you can still actually buy new today on sites like Amazon. And you might not even need the most expensive power supply either, because, well, if it's an older, cheaper CPU, it's probably not pulling a lot of power. And the graphics card you pair that with, well, isn't going to be super power hungry if you buy something modern, because most graphics cards today are actually quite efficient when it comes to power usage. So $1,200, what'll it get you? It'll get you something like this. If you want to follow along, we'll have all these parts linked below. Without further ado, let's get to building. Are you ready? Stay with me. Thermal Grizzly Cryo Sheets are excellent substitutes for traditional thermal paste thanks to their graphene construction and extremely high thermal conductivity, making them more effective than traditional Carbonate thermal pads. They're super easy to install, never dry out, and can be purchased in various sizes ranging from 24 by 12 millimeters all the way up to 50 by 50. In theory, you never have to change one of these, making them peace of mind for servers, gaming PCs, and even high-end workstations. And best of all, no mess. Just keep in mind that these are electrically conductive, so be sure to use them as directed. Check out Thermal Grizzly's Cryo Sheets via the links below for your CPU or GPU today. Now, I don't usually start things off with the case, but I want to give the Lancold 205 Mesh C just a quick run through for those who haven't seen us already build on this in a past video on the channel. And I don't expect any of our hardware to conflict with the dimensions of this chassis, but if you want to build something similar, this will at least let you know what you're getting yourself into.
12 seconds later.
Jesus, okay. The anticipation. I saw the electricity. I knew that was gonna be rough. I literally could see the little lightning bolt come up from the case. Yeah, that was painful. Now for starters, we've got up to a 280 mil fan rad combo mount up front. We do have a nice perforated front panel that's gonna be great for airflow. You'll see this cable bar next to it, and this looks very NZXT-esque, and it has the same functions here in the Lee & Lee version. You can see you route your cables through these holes running all the way down the motherboard tray. Speaking of, up to EATX motherboards here, that's nice in a case this compact, and up top you can see mounts for up to a 280 mil AIO, although I recommend only 240s because you might have some motherboard clearance issues. Of course, at the rear, we get a single 120 mil mount. That's gonna act as our exhaust, and we can slide that up or down. Now, the platform going in that case is gonna be pretty straightforward to assemble. You guys know B550 by this point is going to be a fairly affordable platform, which is why we chose it for this $1,200-ish build. If I can get this motherboard placed on top of the box, this will act as a nice little test bench building assembly setup. We'll get our CPU in. Look at that lovely Ryzen 5 5600X. You getting all that, Raymond? Yeah. Looking all right, okay. And let's see here. I don't know if I've actually built with this chip before. It's been sitting in the drawer for a while and I felt like putting it to some good use. So we're going to install it like that there. Lower the retention arm. We'll get both of our DIMMs installed. Now, some of you might recognize these specific modules. We pulled these from that broken eBay system that we purchased and were able to fix for, I think, like, what was the issue? I don't remember what the issue was. What was the issue? It was a bad motherboard. That's right. So everything else worked and we recycled the RAM, so it's going in here. Yeah, not bad. We've got our trusty iFixit toolkit. We'll install our M.2 next, just removing the single Phillips screw. Ah, there we go. And this, I don't actually know the name of. I don't remember where I even got it from, but it's a Team Group 1 terabyte NVMe. You can find these all day on Amazon, not just from Team Group, but from other reputable manufacturers as well, for around 50 bucks or so. We're gonna use a Thermal Grizzly Cryo Sheet. This should make things a bit easier to clean up later on. So we'll set this nice and gently on top of our CPU. Coolers going down. Now I might have mixed these coolers up. I don't remember if the 5600X comes with this cooler or the lower profile one, the Ray Stealth. But either way, I think you'll be okay unless you're doing some serious overclocking. Alrighty, and that just about does it for our platform. So have a look, almost totally matte black, which is great. It's gonna look nice when paired with our 4070 Super. Speaking of, let's go ahead and get this platform in the case now. And conveniently with this board, we have an integrated rear IO shield. We're just gonna line things up like this. You know, I really wish case manufacturers would just stick to one type of screw, like either a 3M or 6M, I forget which one this is, or a 632s. It would just be nice to have things uniform. I think we have a Type C, we don't have a Type C. What? Oh, no, we do, down here. Okay, so it's way down there at the bottom, which is gonna make this cable routing a bit awkward. I'm not even sure if Raymond's gonna see what I'm doing down here, but just trying to wiggle and jiggle this. Oh, and it's upside down. Why don't they make the Type-C connector for cases like bidirectional? It's just really annoying. They make the regular Type-C cable bidirectional. Can we just be consistent, please? Please? Right, so not bad so far. We're gonna add just a few fans and then it's time for the power supply. That's gonna clutter things up a bit more, but you'll see cable management behind the motherboard tray. She ain't too bad. Gonna route front panel cables first. Initially they were down this side, but I think they look better just going straight down like so, and then we can run our fatter 24 pin along the very front. I found these two PureWings 3 140mm fans in the closet. They are PWM, which is nice, and I think for the record, the 205 Mesh C does come with fans, but I don't remember what I did with them, so we're putting these in instead. If you like to spend a few more dollars on some extra fans, just remember to account for that in your budget. I think you'll have room to spare. We actually have a bit of room to spare in our $1,200 budget for some custom cable extensions, which will look nice later on in the video. I'm debating on adding a third fan. You certainly could. For exhaust, it wouldn't hurt. I think temperature-wise, though, we're going to be okay. And our graphics card especially should have plenty of fresh air coming in from the front, thanks to this large 140 at the bottom. And here we are. Woo, that was loud. Sorry, folks. Check out how clean she looks. It's not about to look this way after we install the power supply. Speaking of, let's get to that right now. And no matter who you ask, you'll always have different opinions on power supplies. The three things I like to look for, obviously, you wanna make sure your wattage is taken care of. Make sure that your efficiency is also, well, expected. And then the third thing I look for is the manufacturer's warranty. That tells me how much confidence the brand has in their own product. You could also reference other sites that'll create little tier lists and things for units. That'll kind of give you an idea of the construction, the build quality, and just the internal components being used, voltage ripple and things like that you might want to care about in a higher end system. In she goes. It is going to be a big help that this unit is not super long. It's getting snagged on this HD audio cable. Okay, did not see that one coming.
A few moments later.
Mount to... Have you ever seen a cringier power supply install? I'd be willing to bet you haven't. Just gotta tighten it down. And now it's time for cable extensions. I thought we were gonna go with like pure black cables, but I think we're gonna add a bit of color. I saw the orange, and while nothing else in the rig currently is orange, I think just a splash of color will do this rig a lot of good. Space out these cable combs a bit, and then connect the extension cable to the 24 pin. This one's always a bit stubborn, so it'll sit sort of like that right there. We'll connect it to the power supply at the back, and it'll be smooth sailing. 8-pin EPS up top, with, of course, accompanying cable combs. And here's the outcome back here. Now you notice two extra cables just kind of dangling. It's because we're waiting on the final component, the final install. That is our graphics card, this beautiful Nvidia RTX 4070 Super. Like I said, it is matte black. It does unfortunately come with this stupid 12-volt high power to dual 8-pin adapter, and I don't have a 12-volt high power cable extension, which means we're stuck using this, which means it's not gonna look as great as it otherwise would, which means we gotta deal with it. Two PCIe slot covers to remove. This actually isn't a big card at all. It's only gonna stretch about the length of our ATX motherboard, which is nice. Just be careful. This is a bit of a fingerprint magnet. You know, you can't have it both ways. It's either gotta look really pretty and be a fingerprint magnet, or it looks ugly and it's not. So I'll take this. In she goes then. Let's see, yeah, so you get a good perspective there of how long this card is. It's literally the length of a standard ATX motherboard, so I imagine this will fit in a lot of smaller cases as well, which is nice considering how much power this thing's packing. This is about as good as we could get it with this dual 8-pin adapter. At least you can see a smidge of the orange to fit the theme. And here we are with an unexpected turn toward a slightly orange theme, but I think it looks really, really good considering we were just going after something that was rather monochromatic. And if you're curious, this is what the backside looks like. So it's still not bad, just don't look at anything at all down here. Perks of having a non-modular power supply. And here comes the tricky part. So Raymond, you're gonna want to get a top-down shot of this. We are going to try to fit this right panel on, and what I'm really worried about is this piece right here, because it kind of just wants to stick up, and I don't think it's gonna play well with this. So let's give it a shot. Seriously? That's like way easier than I thought it would be. Okay, yeah, I totally expected that. Here's to hoping the power on process is just as simple. I'm not gonna jinx it. We're just gonna go for it. Here we go. Power on, nice. Got a little bit of RGB, we can fix that. I think we're just gonna sync it up to straight orange to fit the cabling. We might need to use the QFlash Plus function, which thankfully is included in this board. Oh no, look at that. We get our post, that's great. We just have to reset the TPM, and then we should be able to load into Windows and test a few games. I know you guys are curious about the 4070 Super. I'm personally curious about how the 4070 Super plays with the 5600X. Still, in 2024, for the right price, you can still justify AM4 in $1,000 or so PC build budget. So let's see how it fares. Now I wanted to emphasize the 1440p resolution. You tend to find a nice balance between both CPU and GPU utilization in this resolution, and starting first with 3D Mark Time Spy, which is a 1440p synthetic in DX12, we scored better than 85% of all submitted results. Our graphics score is around 21,000, but our CPU score is around 8,000, suggesting that this is where our true bottleneck will lie. With most titles out there, unless you're running in 4K, you're probably going to see some CPU limitation in most games, since the frame rate is expected to be quite high with a system of this caliber. And in general, a higher frame rate leads to higher CPU utilization. In 1440p, medium preset, and no DLSS enabled, you can see we're averaging just over 100 FPS, which is great. No frame time spikes. This game is extremely smooth, very well optimized for especially newer hardware. I don't think you're gonna sweat this one at all. And you can see a peek at our GPU and CPU utilizations here. Both are kind of just cruising, and temperatures actually look really good as well. Next up, Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Now this was an Nvidia touted title, but we don't have DLSS enabled, no ray tracing, anything of that sort. We're just running the medium preset with TAA, and depending on the scene, we're averaging somewhere between 130 FPS and upwards of 200, which I think is very, very acceptable for a title that looks this good. Even in 2024, this game knows how to tax a graphics card, and despite this being a built-in benchmark, this is actually the hottest our graphics card ever got, somewhere around the mid-60s, with utilization peaking at around 90 to 95. And in this scene, where it's probably the most intensive, around 150 FPS is still excellent. Last up, the remake of Star Wars Battlefront 2. Now this one surprised me a bit because while the frame rate seems okay at this point in 1440p, medium preset, TAA only, you'll see that when scenes get especially intensive, the frame rate dips quite alarmingly down to around 30, 40, 50 FPS, a place you would never expect a game this well optimized historically to be with something like a 4070 Super. And all I can really chalk this up to is just young drivers. Maybe the game isn't well optimized for the new driver release in this graphics card. Maybe it's the driver itself. I don't have enough data at my disposal to make a claim one way or the other. Regardless, it's clear this specific title seems to have an issue, so just be careful with the games you play. If you notice some incompatibilities or some frame rate dips that are unexpected, be sure to reach out to either Nvidia directly or the game developer. Hopefully you can get these kinks worked out. I also want to point out that the main menu was averaging around 9 FPS, which, yeah, Count Dooku's looking a bit rough. Now, Battlefront 2 aside, I'm sure most of you aren't surprised by the performance this system is packing. The graphics card's gonna be doing a lot of the work, but you wanna make sure that you don't cheap out too much on your CPU because it will play a role, especially if you play in lower resolutions. Starting with something like the 5600X we used here at around 150 USD. You'll also probably notice we managed to sync up the orange LEDs. That was a bit of a pain. I've never worked with Thermaltake RGB software before, but like most RGB software suites out there, it was difficult to say the least. And I also cannot for the life of me get this outer RGB ring in this AMD cooler to sync up with the other orange ones. So it does look a tad clunky, but all in all, still very happy with the way this rig looks. And of course, like I said earlier, we're gonna have all these parts linked below if you wanna build something similar today. So that's it for this one. Thank you so much for watching. Leave some feedback in the comment section below. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. Let us know what you think about this build. What do you think about the 4070 Super? We haven't actually published a review, and I don't think we will. A lot of other channels do far more thorough jobs than we ever could in the review department at this point, so we'll defer to them. But we at least wanted to build with it, kind of give you a taste of performance. It's where you'd expect it to be, right above a 4070, and for a price that I don't think will shock too many folks, which in this day and age, I guess we'll take it. It could be worse. It's sad that that's the mentality we have nowadays, but I guess the one other complaint I could voice is the fact that it still only has, what, 12 gigs of VRAM. And I know that's gonna be a point of contention for a lot of folks who are not keen on paying $600 for a 12 gig card. It is what it is, but overall, I think it looks really good. Obviously, it performs well. It actually stays quite cool, and I'm super happy with the entirety of this build as it stands. Subscribe, like, I already said this stuff. Why am I saying it again? What the heck? I'll catch you in the next one. My name is Greg. Thanks for learning with me.